been nearly 4 years since I was introduced to Ashes of Creation, a game aiming to evolve our currently stagnated genre and bring back the heights of MMOs of old. For today, we'll be going over a recently escalating topic among the community, a concern about PvX. How will it work? How does it actually play out? So, why don't you grab yourself a beverage of your choosing, as your choices will have consequences in Ashes. Now, let's dive deeper. Much speculation has been thrown around regarding PvX. We have one side claiming that PvP-focused MMOs are small communities, that those games' populations shrivel and die very quickly. New World, I'm looking at you. While the other side swears by PvP, and its promises of combat, conflict, and sweet victorious glory. Now, I won't be going into considerable detail into how all of Ashe's systems will tie into the PvX philosophy, as, obviously, I will need content to milk in the future. But what truly is Steven's variant of PvX? A game mode that couples community, risk, and reward, that Steven Sharif knows and holds very dear. A design idea and philosophy that helped secure Intrepid the largest Kickstarter funding ever for an MMORPG. Now, it is no surprise to anyone that Steven's biggest inspirations stem from Lineage 2 and Archetypes, a fact known for quite some time for anyone following the project. For those that have actually played Lineage 2 and Archetypes, they have an idea of what Steven is aiming for. An open world that every player will be thrust into, where players will need to band together to progress accordingly, forming bonds, contested goals, and driving forth the main point of the word community. Being a former Lineage 2 boomer myself, since its beta about 18 years ago, has me more excited than most. Players with first-hand knowledge of these two games will have a good grasp on how the flagging, corruption, and contested content will play out, with many improvements made to a system that we are fond of and had experienced. Now, as Steven has said before, this game will not be for everyone, and this is a statement that I completely agree with, and wholeheartedly understand why. In a current genre where we have theme park MMORPGs delivering a solo Rails experience with achievement collecting, participation trophies, with the ability at a press of a button to teleport you inside a dungeon with random players for a raid, which, let's be honest, most of them you'll likely never see again. If you enjoy this style, that is completely okay, but Ashes aims to be very different, and this is something to keep in mind. For one, if you're expecting to have your weekly raid night like you do in WoW or Final Fantasy XIV in the safe confines of an instance with the buds, I'm sorry to say this most likely will not be the case. We do know that 20% of dungeons will be instanced, while the other 80% will be open world, the biggest and baddest world bosses being out in the open for the taking. We do not know yet fully what the 20% that is instanced will entail. Is it just storyline questing that was stated previously? Forms of solo progression? A harem for Final Fantasy XIV players? Hey, who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. But we do know they will be straying away from offering a plethora of instance-based content, using it mostly for story and horizontal progression. There's still gear to be acquired in the instance content that they will be providing, but they will not be best in slot, as that will be crafted and acquired in open world bosses, with more details on that front as more information is divulged. But what I can guarantee you is you will have to fight for the glory of taking down a world boss. Expect the largest and most efficient guilds and alliances positioning themselves to take the biggest baddies down, covering their flanks and doing whatever is necessary to get the kill. Because trust me, nothing is more infuriating than letting an enemy or spy in your guild sneak past and percentage heal a raid boss that takes forever to kill. Now, that specific mechanic will most likely not be in the game, but I can assure you, it definitely started some never-ending guild wars in Lineage 2. But world bosses will be heavily contested, spawning on conditions ranging from time-based windows, specific node conditions, world events. We have to wait and see. But specific world bosses will have the possibility of dropping unique, one-of-a-kind legendary gear per server, which will make them guilds and alliance magnets. From what is currently known, these unique legendary items will have durability just like any other, and will degrade. We do not know for certain if these are repairable, but current directions are pointing to a hot potato-like system for these unique legendaries, a trophy and beacon for the guild that momentarily carries them. Now, just because you can't fight the biggest and baddest legendary world boss in the server doesn't mean you are left out. There are other bosses, dungeon bosses, raid bosses, that'll be spread out across the evolving landscape of the node system. Many bosses that are not of the utmost priority for the bigger guilds, as they don't drop these unique legendary items, but still offer the possibility of complete gear drops that will be desired. These bosses will still be contested, but to a much smaller degree. In the PvX style of what Ashe is aiming to achieve is camaraderie among players. For example, gathering materials, processing, and crafting for one another will be a norm, an interconnected web that will be required to progress in the game. You will be looking to craft the same types of armor or weapons as the other player base, with the ability to craft up to legendary status. Now these crafts will be no easy feats, however, as legendary status will actually have meaning in Ashes, and will take a considerable time investment. But crafting gear in Ashes is the gold standard, with items including stat blocks to build your character out to your fancy. But whether you decide to buy completed gear, craft it yourself, or gather the materials needed and seek out assistance in crafting, that decision is entirely up to you. But the node system, crafting system, scarcity of resources, group-based content, the entire foundation of the system built for Ashes is designed to nudge you into interacting with your fellow players. Does that mean you cannot be a solo-only player? It doesn't, but you would have a more difficult time, and be withdrawing yourself from a lot of content. PvX balances PvP and PvE in harmony. It cannot solely be one or the other. For the cries out there saying Ashes will be a PK fest, I can assure you that can't be farther from the truth. I will phrase my response to those critics as a question. If you spent many months crafting your gear set, in a world where resources are limited and takes a significant effort, would you really be willing to go corrupt and risk dropping said gear with the heartache that is sure to follow? Most likely not. For those saying that the system hasn't been tested, as it is all theoretical, it isn't, as Lineage 2 has had this same system since its inception. Now, were there some flaws in L2's karma system? Absolutely. But the majority of which have already been patched up by Steven's design direction within the corruption system, specifically noted in the last dev update. Experiencing firsthand the weaknesses of L2's karma system, I can assure you, nearly every aspect he mentioned has it pretty much covered. Now, did PKing happen rampantly in L2? No, it did not. But the times it was used, abused, and exploited will be remedied by Steven's modifications. This is precisely why some calls for a PvE-only server to avoid the fright of being PK'd or deal with PvP is just downright silly in my opinion. The game isn't designed along a PvE-specific focus. It simply just would not work. The entire premise of the node system is to have players band together under a node of their own choosing to call home, develop it, protect it, along with your own resources from an attempted siege. A PvE server with no one sieging or daring to change the landscape of the server would just end up in a static node environment. A never-changing world just like every other MMO we've experienced. With no change, you end up with bosses and dungeons that would never be brought to the light of day, along with what hidden resources may have also been present. It fundamentally goes against everything the node system is designed for. The bounty hunter system would be pointless, as there would be no one to go after. Caravans with no risk, and not offering the feeling of reward. Open seas for everyone, without looking on the horizon for the side of pirates. There are many other factors on why a PvE server simply won't work. The systems just aren't designed for it. The PvX elements in Lineage 2 were extremely successful. As a player of this old gem, I experienced being in smaller, more close-knit guilds, which focused on helping each other and progressing at a slower pace, as well as large guilds and alliances contesting world bosses and battling it out for the game's castles. A game that used an identical flagging system as Ashe's, and an inferior version of AOC's corruption system. The system does work. In comparison, we have brand new MMOs that have been going deeper into the same swamp-infested rabbit hole, which the majority end up flopping and going free to play in less than a year. Or, even worse, starting off as such with pay-to-win infested mechanics. Yes, Ashe's PvX system and what it's aiming to deliver is very different from what the current MMORPG player base is used to. It takes a 180 turn back in design direction to a time where the main fundamental core of an MMORPG was very different. The reason why L2 was successful, and one of Steven's biggest inspirations, was not due to the amount of in-game PvE content and tons of railed and linear stuff to do, as we see in current MMOs. The PvX system, coupled along with the flagging and karma system, allowed the players themselves to be the content, shape and form the servers, build bridges, break them, spawn rivalries, form friendships. It was the human element that made it an experience unlike any other, and in my honest opinion, suggest not to be afraid of this factor and try to be more open-minded on the social aspect. You would be limiting yourself in Ashes by not looking to join a guild or find a group of people that matches your values, suits your tastes, and preferences in company. I can assure you there will be many like-minded guilds and people out there, whether it be with a casual focus on the game, war, economy, crafting, conquest. All the choices are completely viable in Ashes. As much as I enjoyed the PvP side of Lineage 2, I equally enjoyed the small things, helping one guilty gather their needed materials for a craft, as they had done the same for me, or a group of us grinding for a spellbook that our buffer needed, which in turn would help the party as a whole. The game was simply not designed to be soloed. All the moments added up to an experience that I wish others could experience, something that is severely lacking in the current genre. Now yes, the game was an absolute grind fest, but more than anything, this fact alone helps lend strength to the core design of PvX and the game philosophy that Ashe is going for. If in a game like L2, which had little to no glamour, no instance dungeons, infinitesimal quest lines, barely anything meaningful in mounts, arenas, housing, horizontal progression, heck, systems in general, you hopefully see the barren wasteland of a featureless landscape I'm describing before you. Yes, this game lasted nearly a decade under a subscription model, with World of Warcraft running full steam right along with it. Yes, there is open world PvP, but that doesn't mean it is rampant in every nook and cranny. The systems did what they were intended to do. I'm hoping everyone will be able to give this same PvX game mode that Ashes is embracing a shot, and see how it can change your views. A game that doesn't simply lose its appeal when all the real content has been explored. With the benefit of all the advancements we have in current tech, systems, features, plus Intrepid's genre-defining node system, pushing every boundary and giving us depth and features to a level we haven't ever seen before. I'm very much looking forward to what the future of Ashes has in store. Although, not the cosmetic castor though. That I could do without. I just want to say thanks for spending your time with me. If you enjoyed and can give a like and subscribe, I would be greatly in your debt. Leave your thoughts below, as I always appreciate a healthy discussion and seeing other people's points of view. The Discord link will be below as well. Thanks once again. Till next time. Peace.